Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books, and I've got another book for you today. Now, just to warn you, my computer is very loud at the moment because it is currently burning some old VHS tapes. Unfortunately there's not really anywhere else in the house that I can film this at the moment. There's things happening. There's also lots of background noise as well from the street. So I've turned my fan off and closed my windows for you. And it's been really hot, so that is pure love for my audience when I am willing to turn my fan off and close my window so that you can watch and hear me. Anyway, today's book is Girl A by Abigail Dean, and this is the front cover of the book. Very intriguing. Now, this is a book about child abuse and looking at a group of children all grown up looking back on the abuse that they suffered. So it's very, very strong, dark material. I'll just get in straight with that blurb for you now. Lex Gracie doesn't want to think about her family. She doesn't want to think about growing up in her parents' house of horrors. And she doesn't want to think about her identity as Girl A, the girl who escaped. The eldest sister who freed her older brother and 4 younger siblings. It's been easy enough to avoid her parents. Her father never made it out of the house of horrors he created, and her mother spent the rest of her life behind bars. But when her mother dies in prison and leaves Lex and her siblings the family home, she can't run from her past any longer. Together with her sister Evie, Lex intends to turn the house of horrors into a force for good. But first, she must come to terms with her siblings and with the childhood they shared. Who have each of these siblings become? How did their memories defy or galvanise Lex's own? And as Lex pins each sibling down to agree her family's final act, she discovers how potent the spell of their shared family mythology is, and who among them remains in its thrall, and who has truly broken free. This definitely did not go where I thought it was going to go. At first, it did feel a little bit slow. They're very, very long chapters, so I do one chapter, put it down, and not look at it for a while. I actually managed to get this book expire twice. When I say that, it's because it's through BorrowBox, my library apps, so you only have it for so much amount of time, and then, as you do with normal library book, you can extend that if you want, or you can just return it. So I let it expire 2 times while I was reading it, because it took me so long to process what I was reading because it is so dark and at times a little difficult to follow, because you have Lex in the present as Girl A, and then each chapter is dedicated to one of her siblings, so it goes from like Girl A to Boy A. So you're going through the siblings kind of as how they were identified in the news, because they weren't allowed to use the children's real names because they were children. Yeah, it's just all done from Lex's point of view, so you see her looking back on her siblings in the House of Horrors and where they are now. But yeah, it's very, very clever story. I believe it was kind of inspired by a true story. It's 336 pages. It is in fiction, despite being based on a real story, and it's in crime, thriller, general fiction, literary fiction, psychological fiction, and true crime. Yeah, unpacking this one is going to be interesting, because, as I said, it didn't quite end up where I thought it was going to end up. As I said, it is very dark, especially when you're looking at something as prolific as child abuse. To be honest, it's something that you don't think about that often. What happens to the children who survive? How does that damage them, and how do they grow from that? And are they constantly going to be stuck in that past of being known as, in this case, Girl A? How does that affect their minds as they grow up? It's just very, very interesting, and I do find it kind of bizarre where you've got quotes on the front saying "I loved it." And I'm just thinking, I don't think I'd use those words to describe how I feel about this book. It was definitely a good book, it was definitely an interesting premise, but to say I loved it when you're looking at the subject matter, it doesn't seem like the right words. Basically, it starts off with Lex, it's the Gracie children. Straight away, you'll find out that Lex is now a lawyer, and that her mother has died in prison. Through that, you then get flashbacks to Lex as a child and the event that led up to the worst of the abuse. So it starts off as like more little things, like if a child misbehaves, just like right, you're not eating dinner. Yeah, it's all those little things that kind of build up. So you start off with them missing meals at home. You see the kids going to school with like hardly any food. They go into the kitchen looking for food, but there's like nothing there because parents are only thinking about themselves. And then it gets to the point where they're taken out of school, you know, they're left for starving, and eventually they end up chained to their beds, and it's just so dark. Lex is telling you all this information through her modern day narrative. It's a really sad story, especially with where it ends up, because I really didn't know where it was going as I was reading it, because it was just like, is this just a case of we're going to see kind of how it all happened? Is that the point of this story? So when kind of the twist came out towards the end of the book, it was just like, yeah, I really didn't see that one coming. And in a way, based on the fact that Lex is presented as almost one of the most normal of them all, you almost should have seen it coming, because nobody can consider themselves normal when they've got that kind of history. And this is not to kind of put like a thing on like what is normal, I'm just saying, because obviously this is a very not normal story. Yes, these things happen every day, but at the same time you don't consider it normal for parents to abuse their children and for children to grow up and have that being all they know. So when you are looking at all the children's kind of what they went through in the house, which is known as the House of Horrors, and then seeing where they ended up and how they were separated and adopted, and it's just like, at first you're just thinking, should they ever have been separated in the first place? But then as it goes through, you realise that no, I think at the end of the day, maybe the separation was best for all of them, because otherwise they never would have gotten out of that memory. With them all together, they all would have wallowed in that misery. So by separating them and letting them grow up in loving families, it allowed them to create new memories away from the House of Horrors. Does that make sense? It spelled out quite quickly that the dad died very quickly after Lex escaped from the house. And you see kind of the build-up as to what made Lex want to escape in the first place. I mean, obviously, you know why she wants to escape, but kind of the events that led up to the day that she did escape and how it happened. You also look a little bit at kind of the parents' roles in the abuse. The dad, Mr. Gracie, was kind of the driving force behind everything, and that the mother was as much of a victim as the children, even though the children don't really see it as much that way. Lex's relationship with her mother when she dies in prison, she just like wants nothing to do with her mother at all. So I think it's fairly understandable when children have these parents that they're looking up to, they've got what seems like abuse coming from both parents. It would take a long time to realise that one of their parents might have actually been a victim of the other. So it's a very, very interesting story about how that abuse manifested, even though you're seeing it from the point of view of the child. Because children pick up on things so easily, you can see, especially through the flashbacks, Lex's relationship with her mother and her father, and how different that relationship was, especially when her mother was pregnant. Because as you can tell from kind of the sibling side of things, her mother is pregnant quite a lot. It's interesting as you go through and you're hearing about all these different siblings, and you're just there going, okay, so where am I going to hear that story? And then you're just like, oh, this is their story. I'm already reading their story, and maybe their story finishes in the past and not in the present. It was an incredible book, and for somebody who is a fan of like true crime, you know, I think I mentioned videos before, you know, I've got books about like Jack the Ripper. I just find it quite fascinating to kind of see the psychology of it, how it happens. It's always interesting to me to see how things go under the radar. There's a point in the book where Lex receives a letter from her school teacher, and her school teacher says, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't do enough to save you. And that really hit me when Lex receives that letter, because it's that whole thing of just like, could I have done something? You know, when you see that letter, you've got a teacher who knew something was wrong. When you get to the point when you realise that Lex was coming to school with hardly anything in her lunchbox and was eyeing up other people's lunchboxes and saying, oh, can I have one of your biscuits? When she's just got 2 pieces of bread with some margarine in the middle, and that's it. And she's looking at other people's lunches going, can I just have a bite of that piece of chocolate? Can I just have one of those biscuits that you've got, where you've got like a pack of 3? Can I have one of those Jaffa cakes? Because she is starving. And there's even a point when she turns up to school, I think it's after a summer break, and everyone goes, oh, you all look really skinny. But it sounds like they're saying it almost in a, like, oh wow, you've lost weight. When really, it's not a compliment. It's a, oh my god, you are looking dangerously thin, but I don't know what to say or what to do. It's a very, very powerful book, and there's so much to unpack. I don't know how much I've said at this point, but I definitely have not even scratched the surface of how dark it really gets. And to be honest, I think you need to read it to really get that. So I'm going to stop talking about it. So it's Girl A by Abigail Dean. That is the front cover of the book, and it was 336 pages. Normally this wouldn't take me that long to read. I've done longer books in one sitting before, but because of how long the chapters were, once I'd read one chapter, I felt ready to pop it down and just think it through. It was just such an interesting book, and I think it's a book that everybody should read at some point, just to kind of really understand how deep it goes. Because the fact that you look at each chapter as kind of dedicated to a different child in this house, and then through that you're also getting the state of minds of the parents, whether that was the mother who was constantly having more children, and, you know, the abuse getting worse when she didn't get pregnant, and then the state of the father as things come out, and yeah, I feel like my mind is still blown from this book and I'm still processing it, even though I actually finished this 2 days ago. But yeah, Girl A, Abigail Dean, just fascinating. Fascinating is the word I use for this book, completely fascinating. I will say that obviously because of the child abuse themes, obviously if that is a trigger for you in any way, I definitely do not recommend this book. But for people who are interested in true crime and psychology and kind of what happens to the children when they are older, it is just fascinating. I've almost finished Shadow of Night. I'm getting there, and then I'll be moving on to the 3rd book, and then also got the other book that Deborah Harkins wrote, Times Convert. My dad read it and he said that it was a slow burner, but it was really good, and that it feels like it's in the same world as Discovery of Witches, so I'm really looking forward to that. That's a couple of books down on my bookshelf now. I've also started a book called The Pact on BorrowBox by Amy Haydenrish. I'm going with Haydenrish, but if that's wrong, please let me know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I do this for all sorts of books. I've got a playlist on my YouTube channel called Debbie's Bookshelf. It's basically dedicated to all the books I have talked about on this channel from the books on my bookshelf, because that's basically what this is. I've been taking books that were in the house, pop them on my bookshelf, and I am making my way through them. Slowly but surely, I'm getting through them, as well as the books that I download through BorrowBox, which is my library app. Just caught a glimpse of where the video is on my computer. I've been doing home videos, but this one is a panto that I did when I was 11, and it was Cinderella, and so the Ugly Sisters are on my screen at the moment, and I just remember how much fun that show was. I was 11 when I did it. This video is over 20 years old and I haven't seen it in years, and now I am watching it play from the VCR, which is behind me, to my computer, which is in front of me. It's mind-blowing that I can do that. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I upload videos every single Wednesday. But yeah, cheers, thanks a lot. I'll see you next week. Mwah. Bye, my lovelies. Hello.
Have you tried this VCR?
Yeah, it's doing Cinderella at the moment.
And is the picture quality
Look.
better? Much better.
Yeah, before it wasn't even playing anything.
So cleaning the heads up is...
Yeah.
I should just do the one thing so it
Yeah, I'm
doesn't
just
get
doing
too
one at a
hot
time
and then-
because this is like, it's the panto, so it's like an hour and a half long.
Yeah, and then shut it down and do another one tomorrow.
Yeah, well, maybe when I get in from work.
Good, I'm really pleased that worked.
Same here, because it's also really good sound quality.